Hey everyone, let's talk about something really confusing. Those moments when someone seems into you, but also distant. When they're hot, then cold. When their words say, I like you, but their actions say, don't get too close. If you've been stuck in that push-pull dynamic, you're not imagining it. You might be dealing with an avoidantly attached person who, believe it or not, is crazy about you and terrified of it at the same time. So today, I'm going to walk you through 6 psychological tricks avoidants often unconsciously use when they're falling hard for someone. And knowing these can change how you see the entire relationship. When someone with an avoidant attachment style is falling for you, one of the most confusing behaviors you'll notice is how they pull away right after moments of deep emotional connection. You might have had an incredible weekend together, laughing, opening up, maybe even getting physically close, only to find them distant or completely MIA the next day. This isn't random. It's not that they suddenly lost interest. What's actually happening is that their nervous system is reacting to vulnerability like it's a threat. For an avoidant, closeness feels both desirable and dangerous. The moment they feel too emotionally seen, their internal alarm bells start ringing. This reaction is deeply rooted in their past experiences. Often, avoidance learned early on that vulnerability led to disappointment, criticism, or even abandonment. So even though their adult self might crave connection, their subconscious is wired to associate intimacy with emotional risk. After a weekend of bonding, their system goes into what you could call an emotional hangover. They need to retreat to regulate, to reassert control, to remember who they are outside of the relationship. It's not necessarily a reflection of how they feel about you. It's more about how they're trying to manage what they're feeling internally. What's incredibly deceptive about this pattern is that to you, it may feel like a punishment. You're thinking, did I say something wrong? Did I move too fast? Were they just pretending to be into me? But to them, this withdrawal is self-preservation. It's how they keep themselves safe from the very thing they want most: connection. Ironically, the better things go between you, the more intense this reaction might be. That emotional high triggers a low, almost like they need to detox from how good it felt. It's their way of regaining emotional control. Avoidants also tend to value independence so much that intimacy can feel like they're losing part of themselves. After getting close, they start worrying that they're becoming too reliant on you, or that you now expect something from them that they're not ready to give. The withdrawal isn't always a conscious decision. They may genuinely not understand why they suddenly feel the urge to create distance. They might rationalize it as being too busy, needing space, or feeling smothered, even if you weren't pressuring them in any way. But underneath those surface-level excuses is fear of being hurt, of losing themselves, or of becoming dependent on someone else. This is why the worst thing you can do in this moment is panic and chase. Because when you respond to their retreat by trying harder, texting more, asking what's wrong, trying to fix it, you're confirming their fear that closeness leads to pressure. The best thing you can do is hold your ground, let them come back at their own pace, and show them that connection doesn't have to mean control. It can mean safety, consistency, and choice. If they're truly into you, they will return because the bond didn't scare them away. It just spooked the part of them that still doesn't know what to do with genuine closeness. When you're dealing with someone who has avoidant tendencies and they're secretly falling for you, one of the most baffling behaviors you'll notice is how they flirt with you, sometimes intensely, only to pull back or shut down not long after. This can feel incredibly confusing. One moment, they're sending long texts, teasing you, complimenting you, or initiating plans. The next, they're suddenly quiet, emotionally distant, or even acting as if nothing happened. It's not inconsistency for the sake of games. It's actually a tug of war happening inside them between desire and fear. At their core, avoidants crave connection just like anyone else. But the moment they start feeling emotionally vulnerable, especially after initiating flirtation, they panic. For them, flirting is both a way to express attraction and a way to test how much control they still have over their emotions and the situation. When they feel safe, they open up. They let that playful, charming, curious side come out. But once the feelings get too real, or they sense they're becoming emotionally exposed, their instinct is to withdraw. They fear that showing too much interest might make them dependent, or worse, give you the power to hurt them. The thing is, when they're flirting, it often feels very real, because in that moment it is. They're genuinely enjoying you. They feel the chemistry. They're not faking it. But emotional intimacy doesn't feel sustainable to them. As soon as they've shown you that vulnerable side, whether that's opening up about something personal, showing affection, or hinting at deeper feelings, they often need to retreat. It's like they've revealed too much and their internal defenses rush in to patch the leak. What's especially tricky is that this can leave you feeling emotionally whiplashed. You're trying to figure out if they're playing with your emotions or if you did something wrong to cause the switch in behavior. The truth is you didn't. The freeze that follows the flirtation is less about you and more about their own emotional regulation. The connection starts to feel like a threat to their autonomy or emotional safety, so they shut it down, not to hurt you, but to protect themselves. Sometimes they'll mask this shutdown by acting indifferent, suddenly busy, or making sarcastic or dismissive comments. It's easier to appear detached than to admit they're overwhelmed by their own feelings. You might even see them redirect their attention elsewhere, to friends, work, or even other potential romantic interests, as a way to re-establish control over their emotions. This avoidance isn't about lack of interest. It's a strategy to manage intensity. It's about maintaining emotional distance just enough so they don't lose their sense of independence. Recognizing this pattern can help you stop internalizing their behavior. Their retreat doesn't mean you misread the signals. It means they're feeling more than they're comfortable with. Their flirtation wasn't false, it was frightening, and unless they've done the work to feel safe with emotional intimacy, this pattern will keep repeating until they learn that closeness doesn't have to equal danger. When someone with avoidant attachment is falling for you, one of the most telling, yet subtle, behaviors you'll notice is how closely they watch you while pretending not to care. This isn't just paranoia or over-analysis on your part. Avoidants are masters of emotional observation. They may appear disinterested on the surface, but underneath, they're deeply tuned into your behavior, your reactions, and even the smallest shifts in your mood. It's their way of staying emotionally involved while keeping a protective wall up. They want to feel connected to you, but from a safe distance, and that distance is managed through observation instead of engagement. You might notice them watching you from across a room, listening carefully when you speak to others, or reacting more than you'd expect to changes in your tone, energy, or availability. They may not always initiate conversations or display affection, but they're almost always attuned to what you're doing. If you stop texting for a while, they'll notice. If you suddenly seem interested in someone else, their mood will shift, though they may never admit it. This is emotional monitoring without vulnerability. It allows them to feel involved with you while avoiding the risk that comes with openly expressing desire or interest. What makes this behavior confusing is the mixed message it sends. Their body language, glances, and occasional check-ins can make you feel seen and wanted, but their words and actions often contradict that. They might seem emotionally flat or detached when you're actually together. They might avoid conversations about feelings or steer away from anything that would require them to show emotional investment. But that detachment isn't disinterest, it's emotional self-protection. In some cases, they may even use indirect methods to keep tabs on you. This could be through mutual friends, passive scrolling on your social media, or subtle probing questions that don't seem like much on the surface, but are really attempts to find out how you're feeling or where you stand. Asking, "How was your weekend?" isn't just small talk. It's a way to see if you spent time with someone else, or if they've been replaced. If they like you, they want to know where they stand. But they're often too scared to ask directly because asking means revealing they care, and that feels too exposed. They may also downplay their reactions in front of you, even when they're affected. If they see you talking closely with someone else, they might act like didn't notice, even if it gnaws at them inside. If you bring up your own dating life, they might nod or shrug, trying to look neutral while their mind races. Their pride, fear of rejection, a need for control all keep them from showing the emotional impact you actually have on them. This creates an exhausting emotional loop for them and for you. They get the emotional connection by watching, not participating, which leaves you unsure where you stand and makes real intimacy feel out of reach. The connection is real, but it's happening behind a wall. Avoidants often have a subtle yet powerful way of getting emotionally close to someone while avoiding the vulnerability that usually comes with it. One of the most common behaviors they display when they're secretly falling for you is pushing you to make the first move. Emotionally, physically, or even logistically. They create situations where you're the one who has to initiate the conversation, send the first text, express your feelings, or ask to hang out. It might seem like they're just being reserved or shy, but it's much deeper than that. This pattern is actually a strategy that allows them to maintain emotional safety while still being connected to you. By encouraging you to make the first move, they get to test the waters without putting themselves at risk. If you respond positively, they feel a surge of connection and relief without having to expose their own feelings first. But if you don't respond the way they hoped, they can retreat with their pride intact. It's an emotional safety net. You carry the weight of vulnerability, and they get the information they want without directly asking for it. It's a way of feeling desired without ever admitting how much they care. This can show up in many subtle forms. They might hint at wanting to see you but stop short of actually making plans, leaving it up to you to follow through. Or they might send a vague message like, "What are you up to?" without committing to anything, hoping you'll take the lead. They might also share just enough about their own feelings to open the door, but not enough to feel exposed. Something like, "I've been thinking about you," without any further explanation. It invites you to fill in the gaps, to take emotional initiative, and to show your hand first. The deeper motivation behind this behavior is fear, not indifference. Avoidance fear rejection, dependency, and losing control in a relationship. So if you're the one always stepping forward first, they feel safer, they get to enjoy the emotional closeness while avoiding the emotional risk. You doing the initiating gives them permission to engage without ever having to be the one who takes the leap. It lets them remain guarded while still having access to connection. What's tricky about this is that it can make you feel like you're the one who's more invested. You may start questioning if they even care at all, when in reality, they may care deeply. They're just too afraid to show it unless they know it's safe. Unfortunately, this often results in a dynamic where one person is constantly reaching and the other is constantly reacting. It can feel unbalanced, even though the feelings are mutual. The avoidant is simply using control over vulnerability as their main coping tool. This can create emotional exhaustion for the person on the receiving end. You're left doing all the work to move things forward, unsure if they're ever going to meet you halfway. But from the avoidant's perspective, they're showing their interest the only way they know how, by letting you lead the way so they don't have to risk getting hurt. One of the most common and frustrating behaviors you'll see from someone with avoidant tendencies is their resistance to labels or commitment, even when it's obvious they care about you. You could be spending time together regularly, having deep conversations, being intimate, even meeting each other's friends and family. But the moment the word relationship comes up, everything suddenly feels tense or uncertain. They might say things like, "Let's not rush. I'm not ready for something serious." Or, "Why do we need to put a label on it?" On the surface, it sounds like they're unsure or not fully invested. But in reality, it's often the opposite. The feelings are real, and that's exactly what's triggering the fear. Avoidants associate labels with expectations, obligations, and the potential loss of their independence. To them, committing to a title like boyfriend, girlfriend, or partner can feel like signing away their emotional freedom. Even if everything about your connection already mirrors a committed relationship, using a label makes it feel official. And that official status brings pressure. It's not that they don't want you, it's that they're scared of what being in a defined relationship might require from them and how vulnerable it makes them. Deep down, many avoidants fear being consumed or losing their sense of self in a relationship. They want closeness, but they also want to feel in control of their own space, their emotions, and their life. When a label enters the picture, it can trigger thoughts like, "What if I can't live up to their expectations?" Or, "What if I lose myself in this?" They start to anticipate all the ways things could go wrong, rather than focusing on the way things are already going right. The emotional risk begins to outweigh the emotional reward. at least in their mind. What's confusing is that their actions often tell a completely different story. They check in on you regularly, make plans with you, remember small details, get jealous, or even introduce you to important people in their life. These are not casual behaviors. These are signs of someone who is emotionally invested, but because of their discomfort with vulnerability and long-term dependency, they can't always translate those feelings into commitment, at least not on a typical timeline. It's also important to understand that this delay in commitment doesn't necessarily mean they're seeing other people or unsure about you personally. More often, it's a fear-based delay, a psychological defense mechanism to slow down what feels overwhelming. They're trying to enjoy the relationship without becoming entangled in the emotional weight they associate with commitment. So they stall, avoid the conversation, or say they need more time, even if everything is already functioning like a committed partnership. This behavior can be incredibly frustrating to someone who's ready for more clarity and certainty. You're left in limbo, experiencing the depth of a relationship without the security of one. And while their feelings may be strong, the avoidant is still stuck in the belief that labeling the relationship makes it more dangerous, not more meaningful. When an avoidantly attached person is falling for you, they often struggle to express their feelings directly. Vulnerability doesn't come naturally to them, so instead of saying what they feel outright, they'll often resort to joking about their emotions. On the surface, it can come across as playful or sarcastic. Comments like, "Careful, I might start liking you," or "Wow, I actually missed you." Weird, right? But underneath that humor is a serious emotional confession disguised to protect them from rejection or discomfort. Joking becomes a safety net. If you don't respond well, they can brush it off as just playing around. But if you respond positively, it gives them permission to feel more secure. This tactic allows them to test the emotional waters without diving in headfirst. Humor gives them control. They get to express something real without appearing too serious, and they don't have to deal with the risk of being emotionally exposed. For someone who has likely learned that vulnerability can lead to pain, abandonment, or a loss of control, joking is their way of saying, "I feel something, but I'm scared of what happens if I say it directly." This kind of emotional disguise can be incredibly confusing for the person on the receiving end. You're left wondering whether they're just being funny or if they actually meant what they said. And the truth is, they often do. Many avoidants are more emotionally attuned than they let on. They feel deeply, but those feelings are buried under years of self-protection. When they joke about feelings, it's a peek behind the curtain, a subtle invitation to see what's really going on beneath their surface. These jokes can also be a form of emotional projection. They might make fun of themselves for being soft or attached, as if acknowledging it in a humorous way will somehow make it safer to admit. You'll hear them say things like, "You're lucky I even texted you back," or "I'm not usually this nice to people." It sounds casual, even dismissive, but it's often a backhanded way of showing affection. They're trying to express closeness without feeling the weight of emotional responsibility. Another layer to this behavior is the fear of reciprocity. If they were to express their feelings plainly, they would have to face the possibility that you don't feel the same way. Joking acts like a buffer. It reduces the sting if things don't go how they hope. They can always retreat into the safety of humor and pretend it didn't mean anything, even if it did. That ambiguity keeps them from feeling fully exposed, which is their default mode of self-preservation. This creates a strange dynamic where moments that should be emotionally significant get coated in sarcasm, wit, or light teasing. As a result, the emotional truth gets buried under layers of banter. For someone watching closely, though, it becomes clear that these jokes aren't meaningless. They're emotional confessions in disguise, carefully packaged to avoid vulnerability while still trying to forge a connection. So, if you've ever felt like you were losing your mind trying to figure out someone who clearly likes you but keeps pulling away, you're not crazy. You're likely dealing with someone who's battling their own fear of closeness while being deeply drawn to you. These 6 psychological tricks aren't about manipulation, they're coping mechanisms. But just because they have their reasons doesn't mean you should ignore your needs. Understanding the way avoidants operate can give you clarity, not so you can chase them harder, but so you can step back and decide what kind of love you actually want. The right relationship won't feel like a game. It won't make you question your worth or constantly guess where you stand. The right connection brings clarity, not confusion, presence, not distance, safety, not second guessing. Because love shouldn't feel like you're constantly earning it. It should feel like you're growing in it. Thank you so much for being here, for listening, and for being open to understanding something so many people struggle to name. Whether you've been through this before or you're in it right now, I hope this gave you a sense of power and peace. Remember, real connection starts with knowing your own worth and refusing to settle for anything less than mutual emotional courage. Take care of your heart, and thank you again for spending this time with me. See you next time.